I feel satisfied. I don't feel like I've ever embarrassed myself or my people, you know, in nothing that I've done. And yet and all, I got the whole world fearing me, you know what I'm saying? At 23, weighing 160 pounds, you know what I'm saying? And I ain't even started. I haven't even wrote my plan out yet, and they scared. I got the vice president know who I am, the president, every cop in every city.
Shakur's so-called tragedy in 1996 was not an ending. It was an escape. The evidence now proves that the story we were told, the drive-by, the hospital bed, and the funeral ashes, was a script written to silence him. What we're seeing today, through newly unsealed documents, recovered photos, and first-hand confessions, is that the entire event was staged with military precision. The FBI knew it, Death Row Records profited from it, and those closest to him played their parts. Shakur didn't vanish into legend. He walked away from a system built to destroy him, and for nearly 3 decades, the industry has protected that lie. It started in September 1996, just hours after the Mike Tyson fight in Las Vegas. The story everyone remembers. Shakur shot 4 times, Suge Knight in the driver's seat, a white Cadillac pulling up beside them. But as the files show, not one confirmed witness ever saw the shooter. The supposed autopsy photo doesn't match Shakur's build, and the coroner's report lists him as 6 feet tall and 215 pounds. In reality, he was 5'10" and weighed 168. Even the man who handled the cremation retired immediately after and was never heard from again. It wasn't chaos. It was choreography.
Unless whether I feel he was involved in what I think he was involved. Aside from that.
Behind that operation stood men who understood survival through secrecy. According to Michael Nice, a former security officer linked to the Black Panther movement, the plan to extract Shakur from LA had been set in motion days before the shooting. Nice claimed his team had intercepted credible intelligence that a hit was ordered on the rapper. Within hours, a switch was arranged at the hospital involving a body double and paid officials. Nice later told TMZ, "It was me, my brother the pilot, Shakur as the co-pilot, and 2 Panther guys on the jet. We took off and immediately knew we were safe." That flight allegedly went from Nevada to Barbados, and then, with help from political intermediaries, onto Cuba.
Boom, it's all over, and we can see, you know, how this shit fall, but that's how it is. And the reason being is because if I can't live free, if I can't live with the same respect as the next man, I don't want to be here, because God has cursed me to see what life should be like.
In the years since, there have been consistent traces of his life there. Declassified documents from the early 2000s reference FBI, correspondence with Cuban officials discussing a U.S. national of cultural significance under government protection. Locals in Old Havana have described a man matching Shakur's features walking the Malecon, and several American tourists have posted blurred photos that investigators believe may be him. In 2014, Suge Knight himself said, "Why you think nobody been arrested if they said they the one that did it? Because Shakur not gone?" Whether Knight was protecting someone or signaling the truth, it reignited global speculation that the rapper had not only survived, but been assisted at the highest levels. That theory gained new traction in 2025, when private investigator Jimmy Poole published photos from Belize showing a man in his 40s, tattooed, bald, and resembling Shakur, posing with a fan. The photos were quickly taken down after a copyright claim from an undisclosed estate affiliate. To those following the trail, that takedown was the clearest confirmation yet that someone with power wanted the story contained. Poole insists his images are genuine and says he has more proof in safekeeping. The picture that emerges is of a man who had no choice but to disappear.
You know, I was never faced with any of those issues like that. I was with him through some very, difficult times throughout his life, and I was basically his backbone. You know, he confided in me, and he never treated me bad. So I can't, go on what the media has portrayed him to be, because I didn't know that.
Because by 1995, Shakur was not just an artist, he was a hostage of Death Row Records. Financial records reviewed by investigators show that despite All Eyes on Me earning more than $60 million in its first year, Shakur's personal payout was less than $1 million. After recoupment fees, legal costs, and what insiders now describe as creative penalties, he was left owing the label over $10 million. The house in Woodland Hills, the one the public believed was his reward for success, was actually owned by Death Row. Every car, every recording advance, every jewelry purchase was recoupable debt. Suge Knight's $1.4 million bail payment in 1995, which freed Shakur from Clinton Correctional Facility, became the chain that bound him. Court filings later revealed that the bail agreement contained clauses ensuring Death Row exclusive rights to 3 albums and any unreleased material created during that term. Industry veterans describe it as a life contract. Shakur had realized that walking away meant forfeiting not only his music, but his life. By mid-1996, he'd begun recording under the alias Machiavelli, inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli, the strategist who wrote about faking one's demise to outwit enemies. His album sleeve even read, "Exit Shakur, enter Machiavelli." In hindsight, it was a declaration, not an art choice.
We had to stay heated and make sure that we protected ourselves, you know what I'm saying?
When police finally gained access to his Woodland Hills mansion years later, they found evidence of what he was trying to protect. Locked storage spaces held over 80 unreleased tracks and 10,000 master recordings, many involving uncredited collaborations. Among them were forced session logs listing artists like Jay-Z and Mary J. Blige, recorded under what former staff call creative obligation. Those tracks, never released or paid out, represented millions in withheld royalties. Investigators described it as a studio prison, a system built to trap artists into permanent debt while the label recycled their work. The financial motive connects directly to the night of the Las Vegas shooting. By 1996, Death Row Records was collapsing under lawsuits and internal feuds. Shakur had announced plans to launch his own label, Euthanasia, which would have pulled top talent from Death Row's roster. Insiders now claim that move triggered panic among executives who saw his departure as the end of their empire. Allegedly, a hit was commissioned not through gang rivals, but through intermediaries tied to both East and West Coast networks, an arrangement designed to erase Shakur and profit from his aftermath.
So make no mistake, the music industry, it's a dirty game. It's a dirty game. Anyway, you know what I mean? It's a dirty game, so much stuff that, you may never hear about, but it's a dirty game.
Yet if the intention was to silence him, it backfired spectacularly. Within months of his disappearance, 7 posthumous albums appeared, each generating millions. The profits were funneled through Interscope and later Entertainment One, both entities that held partial rights through Death Row's old catalog. His estate, meanwhile, fought endless legal battles for access to the vault material. Afeni Shakur's lawsuits in the early 2000s exposed internal memos describing how unreleased tracks were strategically withheld for timed drops. In plain language, that meant they planned to release his voice indefinitely. By 2025, with the estate now valued at over $100 million, we can see how every layer of Shakur's existence, his art, his rebellion, even his supposed demise, was monetized. The Woodland Hills mansion wasn't a home, it was evidence. The label's accountants documented every track, every performance, every lyric. Police recovered notebooks filled with verses marked confiscated and session tapes labeled shelved indefinitely. These were not accidents, they were blueprints for ownership.
Got it. So you're saying Diddy's an FBI informant, and he's been one for many years.
How would they say? Nothing ever happens, but it's still, like I say, angel.
But something deeper emerged during that investigation. Files linking those vaults to communications between Death Row executives and figures later connected to federal surveillance. We're now learning that the FBI's interest in Shakur went far beyond political lyrics or Black Panther lineage. Agents monitored his financial movements, recording sessions, and travel plans in the weeks before September 7, 1996. If he truly faked his end, then he may have done so not only to escape Death Row, but to evade an intelligence network that saw him as a threat to stability. The last piece that ties it all together is still buried in questions no one wants to answer. Suge Knight, from his prison podcast Collect Call, has now suggested that Snoop Dogg has a lot of explaining to do over what happened that night. He claims that Snoop warned crew members not to go to Las Vegas because something's going to happen. Whether that was foresight or complicity remains unclear. But if Shakur's disappearance was coordinated, it means multiple insiders, artists, executives, even family, had to know, which leads to the question the industry still refuses to confront. If Shakur faked his own tragedy to survive, who helped him do it? And why are they still protecting the truth today?
2 weeks ago, I'm outside my office. My assistant comes up and says, Suge Knight wants to speak to you from jail. I said, who? He said, Suge Knight. The Suge? Yes. Gotta be kidding me. No.
What followed his disappearance wasn't grief, it was management. Almost immediately, those closest to the case began reshaping the timeline, sealing records, and keeping the illusion intact. In 2014, during an interview that few people took seriously at the time, Suge Knight made a slip that has aged like dynamite. He said, "Why you think nobody been arrested if they said they the one that did it? Because Shakur not gone." For years, that statement was brushed off as bravado, but when we line it against what surfaced later, the suppressed police logs, the sealed hospital footage, the missing autopsy, it reads less like arrogance and more like confession. The FBI's role in what happened next remains one of the darkest corners of the story. Between 1998 and 2003, agents filed a series of reports quietly confirming potential sightings of a high-value American artist in Havana. The descriptions matched Shakur in uncanny detail, but no action was taken. Sources familiar with those files claim federal officials were instructed to observe, not interfere. Whether that instruction came from Washington or from elsewhere in the intelligence network has never been disclosed. It paints a picture of deliberate silence, an agreement that letting Shakur remain hidden served more interests than bringing him home. Meanwhile, the money machine roared to life. By 2025, Shakur's estate had ballooned to an estimated $180 million, even as the legal battles over who truly controls it dragged through courtrooms from Los Angeles to New York. Family representatives accuse former death row executives and corporate partners of funneling royalties through shell companies registered overseas. Every new release, every anniversary documentary becomes a battlefield over ownership. Insiders whisper that the estate's paperwork is deliberately tangled, ensuring the profits keep circulating among the same quiet investors who once held his contracts.
He's saying that, Diddy, he put a hit out on you and Tupac, and that's the reason why Tupac got killed in Vegas. So, yeah, man. How you feel about that?
Well, first thing first. I mean, that conversation been out there. He put his truth out there. A lot of other people put their truth out there.
This isn't just an artist's legacy. It's a financial structure built on a convenient absence. The longer Shakur stays officially gone, the more lucrative his brand becomes. Limited edition vinyl drops, hologram performances, unreleased verses sold as digital tokens. The legend funds an entire sub-industry of nostalgia, and every time the world celebrates him, it unwittingly fuels the machinery that benefits from him never stepping forward. While the estate's lawyers fight over percentages, the so-called investigation into his supposed end has only grown stranger. The 2023 arrest of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, the first and only man ever charged in connection with the shooting, was announced as closure. But almost instantly, witnesses began to contradict the narrative. One statement from a former associate in Compton claimed Keefe wasn't even in Vegas that night. Another insisted the car he described in his confession had already been impounded weeks earlier. Prosecutors quietly pushed the trial date to 2026, citing conflicting data. It feels less like justice delayed and more like a show designed to keep the public occupied. Inside the 180-page court filing tied to Keefe's case lies another twist. His own 2009 police interview, secretly recorded and only recently unsealed, included claims that Sean Diddy Combs offered millions for a bounty on both Shakur and Suge Knight. Yet in the same transcript, Keefe admitted fabricating parts of his story to get attention. So which part was the lie? The bounty or the confession of lying? The contradictions are so deep they almost seem intentional, as if confusion itself with a goal. The Las Vegas district attorney has confirmed that Diddy has never been charged, despite his name appearing 47 times in that same document. When asked for comment, his representatives dismissed the allegations as pure fiction. But the timing is impossible to ignore. 2025 brought new lawsuits and federal investigations into his other activities, dragging his name back into every headline.
If that's part of the indictment, that's somewhat like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak-offs. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, yo, listen here, you did it once and you're gonna do it again. That ain't gonna make it with the government or nobody.
The deeper we look, the clearer it becomes that the official tragedy narrative was built to collapse. Every arrest, every confession, every documentary conveniently ends just short of evidence. No ballistics match, no verified eyewitness. And every time someone gets close, whether it was Michael Nice in 2018 or the Belize investigator in 2025, they vanish from the conversation. The real crime may never have been a tragedy. It was the construction of a disappearance that fed an empire. Behind that empire sits the fortune Shakur left behind, now swollen beyond what he ever earned while alive. The numbers are staggering. In 1996, his accounts showed less than $500,000 in personal assets. Today, streaming platforms and licensing deals bring in more than $20 million annually. That jump didn't happen by chance. It happened because the myth of a fallen icon is more profitable than the presence of a living man. The 2025 release of 4 new tracks, marketed as recovered from studio archives, boosted sales overnight. But insiders familiar with the estate's recording logs hint that those vocals might not be decades old at all. Studio metadata reportedly lists recording equipment from the mid-2010s, technology that didn't exist during Shakur's lifetime. If that's true, we're looking at something unprecedented. Either advanced digital reconstruction or an artist who never truly stopped creating. The labels have offered no explanation beyond restored material. Yet they continue to register copyrights under corporate entities still linked to death row's defunct holding companies. The same network that once controlled Shakur's career now controls his afterlife. And as long as the profits keep flowing, no one inside that system has reason to question the official version of events.
And once Pac passed and Biggie was gone, the lane was wide open. You know what I mean? And he excelled even more. So, but there was some situations along the way.
Even the government's silence looks strategic. Declassified communications between entertainment lobbyists and Justice Department officials from the early 2000s mention legacy artist protections, a phrase that some analysts now interpret as coded language for managing posthumous revenue streams. It suggests that keeping certain figures frozen in myth protects financial stability across the music sector. Shakur's case may be the model that proved the concept works, a story too valuable to end. We can trace the manipulation in real time. Each time an anniversary passes, new merchandise appears, another biopic gets optioned, another hologram performance takes the stage. The narrative is refreshed just enough to reignite public emotion without revealing the full truth. It's a loop, a controlled myth cycle feeding off nostalgia. And at the center of it all stands an unanswered question. Who holds the keys to the vault, and what do they really know about where Shakur went after that night in Las Vegas? The more we examine the paper trail, the more it looks like a financial coup masked as a tragedy. Every player benefited. Labels gained catalog control, executives secured royalties, even law enforcement earned political credit for reopening cold cases that never had endings. If Shakur ever planned his exit as a way to reclaim freedom, the industry quickly turned that freedom into a product. What began as survival evolved into the most successful illusion in music history. And now, nearly 3 decades later, the silence feels coordinated. Suge Knight hints from prison, Diddy faces his own scandals, and the estate keeps growing richer. Each revelation points back to the same invisible architecture, an industry that learned how to make eternity profitable. If we believe the evidence, Shakur didn't just outsmart his enemies, he outsmarted the system itself. But systems have long memories and they don't like being outplayed. So maybe the real mystery isn't whether Shakur is alive in Cuba or Belize or somewhere off the grid. Maybe it's how so many powerful hands have kept his truth buried while cashing every royalty check his legend generates. The records, the lawsuits, the silence, all of it leads to one chilling thought. Shakur didn't just escape his attackers. He escaped an industry that would have buried the truth with him. The question is, who's still digging the grave? Until next time, we'll be watching the clues, waiting for the moment the truth finally plays its last verse. Stay tuned, stay questioning, and we'll see you in the next one.